All right, we're off and rolling on another video. It's recording. Yes, I have a stopwatch over here. So if you see me look over here, that's what I'm looking at. Try to not go too long, but I did have a comment. Somebody said they wished I did longer videos and not such short ones. So I guess I got to kind of balance it. But this is for the people who just like long videos, rambling about all kinds of stuff. I have 4 pages of comments I just grabbed randomly and printed them off because I love your guys' comments. I appreciate you guys taking time to leave comments. And like it actually pointed, some of these I actually got some good little rabbit trails to go down because somebody would make a comment and I look up and I'm like, I want to look into that. So I appreciate those. And even there's one on here, that one of the first ones I'm going to address is kind of taking issue with me, and that's fine, as long as you do it like somewhat respectful. And I actually listen to those and be like, is that true, you know? But anyway, I wanted to address first this flag back here. Somebody had asked me about this. This is a Confederate flag. I know people don't recognize it as a Confederate flag because you just always usually what people think of the Confederate flag is actually the battle flag, which is the St. Andrew's cross with the stars and the lines, the red, white, and blue one. That's the traditional Confederate flag, but that's actually the battle flag, and this is the a take on the first national battle flag. And so like this is the narrative, right? Like, I mean, I don't believe really any of history totally of this narrative they give us, but I do believe there's parts of the narrative that are true. Any good lie is going to be a lot of truth mixed in with some lie of it. So, but anyway, just I want to touch on that because I don't believe the whole narrative of that, of the War of Northern Aggression or the Civil War, depending on whether you're from the North or the South or what your ancestors taught you. But this is a Confederate flag. It's the Cherokee Braves says that because the Cherokee Nation was actually, in my opinion, from what I've been told, the Cherokees were the last ones to surrender. They were the last ones in the South to surrender. It wasn't Lee. Lee never surrendered the South. Lee was a general and he didn't have authority to surrender the South, but the narrative kind of, I think a lot of us get, was that Lee surrendered the South at Appomattox to Grant, and it's like, no, he surrendered his troops. He did not surrender the South, and the war went on after that, and the last people that surrendered were actually the Cherokee Nation. I know a lot of people will say, well, wait a minute, that isn't the official narrative, so you shouldn't be saying that. That disrespects people. You know? That's what I've been told. And those white stars there are the 13 states. The red stars are the Indian nations that fought with the Confederacy, which is the Cherokee, the Chickasaw, Choctaw, the Creek, and the Seminole. So there were 5 Indian nations that were part of the Confederacy. And there were black people that were free black people that fought for the Confederacy. And there were slaves that were black that fought for the Confederacy. I know it doesn't fit the narrative, and that's going to make a lot of people mad because I shouldn't be disrespecting people. But, you know, I mean, look, here's my, on my mom's side, this book here, that's my genealogy. That's my ancestors right there. And a lot, you know, I mean, I'm not trying to disrespect anybody. I'm just telling you what the part of the stories are. And, like, it's not disrespecting to listen to stories and then you make up your decision, what you want, what you believe. But these are stories handed down, and a lot of them there is legitimate facts and paper and stuff to back some of this up. It's just not part of the official narrative. And I mean, the first Native American, you know, people are all like, let's promote the Native Americans. Well, the first Native American general was from the Cherokee Nation, and people aren't told about him. Now, they did make a stamp. The U.S. Post Office did let the Cherokee make a stamp for him. I don't even know why they did or how that happened. Guess one of those things they let happen because they get pressured to. The first Native American general was a Confederate general, and he was of the that doesn't fit the racist narrative, really. Like, they want to erase all that. But see, now they're wanting to erase Jefferson and all that. We're always going through these resets and resetting history, right? But anyway, that's about the flag. Well, we'll talk more about that stuff later. So, first comment I'm going to touch on was somebody said, the first large-scale project undertaken by the Smithsonian Institute was a survey and inventory of native ruins and settlements. And it's like, yeah, and the Smithsonian is known for, in the universities, any of the government organizations, but especially the Smithsonian, lost and burned and disastered a lot of the history, and that's why we don't have it. And like the Hopi or the Navajo, not sure which, there's an interesting video from one of their elders saying that, you know, they turned over a bunch of artifacts to those people way back, and they've never seen them again, and they're like, no, you didn't give us any artifacts. And these were artifacts according to their tradition, not the white tradition, the Indians, the Hopi or the Navajo, or maybe both of them. But they say these were relics that I believe, I don't want to like, see, I know so much of this without having the stuff there, so don't quote me on this, but I believe they said they were things that were here when they got here. Like that they don't remember that they kind of like they inherited these relics. But I'm not positive. And then it's not all of them, but I think they said some of these were ones they inherited, which is kind of a thing that as the more that I dig, and I'm not looking into white history, I'm looking into what the Indians tell us, what the Indian story is, like the Cherokee. That a lot of their tradition is there were things here before them when their people got here from wherever different ones say they got here. And so these things the Smithsonian and them took and we've never seen again were ancient Hebrew. Like when they tell about what they were and how they looked, people are like, that's ancient Hebrew. Like that sounds like ancient Hebrew stuff. And they still have relics now, and they won't show them to anybody because they said they're afraid. So they're very protective, and they won't let most people see them. Like only certain people. You have to be very close to them to let them show you some of this stuff, because they're afraid that the government will take them and they'll disappear them because they want to erase this. They don't want what the Hopi are telling you about stuff. It doesn't fit the narrative, and they want to erase it. And so that goes into this next comment. The next comment is, and this is one somebody I think kind of getting on me about I think this was on the blue-eyed Indian one. It says, having an interest in history and having a respect for the legitimacy of spoken word are admirable traits. Well, I agree, they are. And that's what I'm looking at a lot, is what the Indians, what the Cherokee, what the Seminole tell us. Yet speaking of such things with a voice of truth is disrespectful. See, I don't understand that. Like I'm telling you what the Hopi elders tell, so I'm just kind of relaying their story. So as long as I'm telling you what they're telling, and I'm just relaying that message, or I'm saying, hey, the Cherokee elders say this is what they believe, and then I repeat what they say, how is that being disrespectful? I don't know if I'm understanding that right. Speaking of such things with a voice of truth is disrespectful. Remember, one of the most disrespectful myths perpetrated by the colonizers was to suggest natives weren't civilized. Only white people were. Well, that's not what I'm suggesting. I'm suggesting the natives were far more advanced than what we're told. Like, they may have been more advanced than the white people that came here. That's what I'm trying to get across. So I don't know if that point isn't coming across. In fact, that narrative was used as an obvious reason to exterminate, rape, steal, and classify natives as less than human. Right, that's the narrative that is a lie. That's what I'm trying to tell you. The whole thing of all the native people and the amount of them that the narrative tells you, it's not true. They were in cities. They were in forts. They lived in a way that isn't totally the narrative that we're told. There's these savages out running around with no clothes on in Montana in the middle of winter. I live in Montana. I camp in the wintertime. I don't believe their narrative. I believe they were more advanced. To suggest without ample proof that there were white people predating the colonizers and that they were more civilized is very hurtful and counterproductive. Okay, well, this is I appreciate this comment because it was put out in a decent way, so I don't have a problem, and it's a great comment. And so my question to this person is, if you're watching this, leave another comment in this video. What is ample proof to you? Like, because I'm suggesting things without ample proof. Well, my proof is the oral history of the Native Americans on a lot of this. You know, now some of it I'm quoting James Adair or people that lived with the Indians, but he lived with the Indians for 40 years. And what he was saying was what they were saying. So, I mean, like, that's what I don't understand about this comment. If some guy lives with the Indians for 40 years back in the 1700s, like 1730 to 1776, and he is telling you what he's learned from them, and he's basically telling you their narrative, and they're telling him, hey, there were white people here. That these forts and stuff that you see, you know, the white people come in, the settlers come in, and they say, wow, look at these forts. And the Indians, their narrative even now today is, we didn't, at least with some of them, you know, it's not like a lot of the elders are like, no, we did not build those forts. There were buildings here. There were ruins here. And the white colonizers came in and they looked at them and said, oh, the Indians, the Cherokee built these. And the Cherokee people said, I mean, this is what the Cherokee people say. No, we didn't build those. Those were already here from our memory. You know, their oral tradition says that from their memory, they didn't build those. So they're trying to be honest. They could have said, oh yeah, we built all these. So I mean, I don't know what ample proof is. And that I'm just telling you what a lot of this is, what their thing is. And I think that's like James Adair and a lot of these books that I'm quoting, they're doing the same thing. They live with the Native Americans. They get to know them. They get to understand their language, their religion, their history. They care about learning this stuff. So they live with them for 40 years. And then they come away and write about it and say, well, this is what I've understood from them. And they share the story of these Native Americans. And then people want to say, oh, but the problem is it doesn't fit the narrative, right? So I think that's the problem here with this person, is they're like, wait a minute, this doesn't fit the narrative, so it isn't good because there's not ample proof because an official narrative. So I'm a little confused by this. And you know, I'm not trying to spread the narrative that they weren't civilized at all. And I'm not trying to be counterproductive. I'm trying to tell you partly what the Native American, most of I think in my videos, is telling you what the Native Americans say. You know, not what the white narrative says. We should celebrate, he goes on to celebrate, or he or she says, we should celebrate our First Nations peoples and give them dignity to tell their own story without white-splaining it to others. Well, I don't know. I'm telling you what, like in the one video, I put the Hopi elder up there. He's the one telling you that they had a white brother, not me. I'm not that, I mean, are you going to accuse the Hopi elder of white-splaining? I mean, I'm telling you their story that they're telling you. Man, the stuff I'm getting is from the Indian people. Like, I'm not coming up with this. And like, you know, okay, well, I mean, I don't go around telling people, oh, I'm Cherokee. And I like, you know, because look, I look like this, right? So I generally don't tell people. I'm, you know, when I'm out and about, I don't try to pass myself off as an Indian. But you know what? Look, see this? That's my ancestors, a whole book of my ancestors on my mother's side. Okay? It says I have Cherokee in me. We were Cherokee. I don't look it, I guess, by the narrative because I don't have, you know, my skin is lighter complected. But, you know, I'm just trying to pass on what I was taught. But I don't, you know, I mean, so in a way, it's my history too. But see, that's the thing. The narrative almost makes me not, it like wants to silence people. And there's comments in here I'm not going to get to probably today, but I will maybe in other videos, where it's the same people, they're saying stuff. I mean, maybe I should skip ahead. They're like, You know, but the thing is, to not get off topic, what the narrative does is it wants to silence people, anybody, and that's why they wanted, it was 100-year or more war against the people who were here. Like, it started, there was a very advanced, like, Lewis and Clark was the beginning of a 100-year military war campaign to erase history and rewrite it. And even now, today, it's going on. It's going on right now. The same thing that went on then is going on now, and it will continue to go on because they're trying to silence and erase memory, and they don't want people like me, and they want to make people like me, and I'm sure this is going to hit. I know from comments that I've gotten, that, and too, and I know from other people that I've seen on other videos, it makes people not want to say anything because there's this push to say, hey, wait a minute, people that look like me can't talk about Indian heritage, even though it's in my DNA and I have Cherokee blood in me. I mean, I'm not an official member of the Cherokee Nation because that isn't, I don't need to be, you know, like I am. See, I don't look at like this piece of, oh, I got this piece of paper, it says I'm Cherokee. My DNA is Cherokee, okay? You know, but, you know, I don't want the narrative that's pushed. It's like almost like people like me that don't look the part of the narrative. We like, oh, I guess I can't talk about what I was taught growing up because I don't fit the narrative, and people just say I'm white-splaining it. I'll tell you like, oh, this is what the ancestors say, but since I don't look the part, and if I don't say the right things that fit the narrative, then I'm just going to be attacked. So, you know, you don't want to go out there, and that fits that whole narrative too of like, why comment in here of, you know, somebody said, and it's something I hear like, hey, if there was Native Americans, why don't, like, if we're in the short season and some of this stuff was here and the structures were here and the buildings were here, why wouldn't the Native Americans hit? Why wouldn't there be stories about the Native Americans saying, hey, there were buildings here before the white people, the colonizers, you know, these buildings were prior to the Lewis and Clark stuff, right? That's a great question. And I had a family member ask me that. And they said, hey, you know, when I was talking about some of this, and they said, hey, if some of this stuff was true, you know, what about all the Native Americans? Somebody would be telling the story that some of these buildings were already here. Guess what? There is stories. That's the crazy thing. There are stories. There's the real Indians, not like me. I'm not no real Indian because look at me. I mean, heck, if I had blonde hair and blue eyes and dark skin, people would say you can't be an Indian because you have blonde hair. And so like, but there are, quote, the narrative Indians, like the Hopi and the Cherokee elders that say, if you find them and you look for the information, there's plenty of stories that say there were buildings, there were ruins, there were forts, they were here. Our history tells us we didn't build that stuff, and they were already here before Lewis and Clark came, before the colonizers came onto the eastern shore. The Cherokee tell that. That's not me white-splaining anything. That's like their story. So me repeating it, they'll see, but that's the thing. If I look like a traditional narrative Indian, I could sit on here and I could say this stuff and nobody would say I'm white-splaining. You know, it's crazy. But I mean, that is the fight. Like, it doesn't make me mad. It just makes me more like shake my head. You know, like, so, like, don't take it that, like, whoever wrote this comment to me, I'm not like mad about the comment or anything. It just makes me just shake my head and be like, I want to try to explain it to you. Like, that's what I'm trying to wake people up to. We are so lied to even today. It's going on right now. They want to divide us. They so want to divide us. I mean, you'll have a guy whose dad is black, his mom is white, but he doesn't look to fit the narrative of a black person, and he'll say something, and people will say, he's racist. You know, you see this now. And the guy's like, I'm part black. And they're like, you're not. You're a white racist. You're white-splaining stuff. You're not respecting the blacks. And he's like, my dad's black. You know, but he doesn't look the part. Like, he doesn't fit the part because his skin isn't dark enough. You know what I mean? He doesn't look the part. Or maybe he has blue eyes. You know, I mean, it's the crazy thing. They try to divide us. It's wild, man. How long am I at? Oh, man, I'm at 20 minutes. Man, I got to cut this video off. See, I feel like I barely got into anything. Holy cow. All right, well, I'm going to cut this video off because it's going to take forever to upload it. I'll see what this does with comments. If people like this long rambling stuff, I'll keep doing them. I could sit here and talk for another 10 hours about this stuff. But see, I just look at one little comment and my brain just goes, psh, and I have 100 things to say about it. But I guess the wrap up, man, if you made it to the end of this video, that's insane. But my parting comments are, don't let them push off a fake narrative. Listen to the story. If somebody's telling you a story and it doesn't fit the narrative, and you kind of have that thing because it's ingrained in us by the system and the matrix to be like, oh no, that person's crazy. Just listen to it. It might be crazy, but listen to it and like listen to it with an open mind. And don't assume that everything is as it seems. Because in Satan's little season, the biggest thing going on is deception. And that is the power of Satan's little season, is the deception. And the power and the ability to deceive all the nations and all the people who are, their number is as the sands of the earth. That is the power of the deception. So somehow you have to break through the deception. And you can only do that by having, I guess, by trying, and it's hard. Like, I even have a hard time doing it. But you have to set your preconceived ideas over here and say, hey, I'm going to take a minute, and I'm going to take my preconceived things I've taught myself, or that I've been taught, and I didn't teach myself. The stuff I've been ingrained since I was in kindergarten, I have to take that stuff, and the stuff that the church has taught me and all this, all the things that teach us this stuff, the movies, I'm going to try to take that stuff and set it over here on the table for a minute. And then I'm going to listen to this person. And I'm going to listen to them. And then I'm going to investigate what they tell me. And I'm going to see if it lines up with anything or if it questions any of this stuff. Like, you know what I mean? You just got to approach stuff without all the stuff we've been indoctrinated with. And when you do that, I think the more you start to see, that's how it happened with me. I started to go like, whoa, what are these buried buildings? You know, and at first, you know, you see buried buildings, you go like, oh no, there's some good story to this. And you say, you know, but then if you don't set your stuff aside and then look at the buried buildings and actually investigate and say, are these buried buildings? And if you can do that, all of a sudden you walk away with it. You can't look at buried buildings around the United States. The ones here in Missoula, Montana, I mean, they put it on the news and they do, like, we have no explanation for this buried building in Montana. And they have to just say that. There's no explanation for it. But there is an explanation. But, you know, that's the beginning, I think, with anything but just using the buried buildings. You go like, whoa, wait a minute. This doesn't fit the narrative. And that is the moment of awakening. And the more that you can do that and look at things that don't fit the narrative and set our preconceived, pre-programmed stuff aside and look at it, and then you start going, whoa, wait a minute. Well, then wait a minute. Well, and then you can look at something about, say, the Native Americans, what the Hopi are telling us. The Hopi elders tell us something, and you can start going, oh, wait a minute. This is one of those things, maybe I need to set my stuff aside and listen to the Hopi elders and listen to what they're telling us. And then you go like, wait a minute, there were white people here with the Hopis before the colonizers ever came? This is what the Hopi are telling us. Then it just starts to domino, man, because you start to realize we've been lied to, we've been deceived, and it's still going on today. We are in a full-on deception. So that's how I'll end the video. And maybe next time, I'll talk about the 100-Year War, the military campaign started by Lewis and Clark coming to South Dakota, Montana, the whole West, and why they went through here. It was the beginning of a 100-year military campaign to erase, to find out what was going on out here, who was left. This was a scouting mission. This was a recon mission to find out what they were up against. Like, that should interest you military people. It was a Marine recon mission to recon what they were going to be up against out here to recapture the kingdom area that had fallen after the millennial kingdom. They hadn't got to this area of of the world yet after the kingdom, after the 1,000 years reign. And that was the beginning. Lewis and Clark was a recon mission, and it started a 100-year war to retake this area and erase the people in the memory of the millennial kingdom. That's my take on it, and I'll go into that maybe in the next video. So look forward to that if you like that kind of stuff. I'll talk to you later. Have a great day. Have a great week, and we'll catch you on the next one.
This is Echo Pass Outpost checking in from the edge of the map. If you can hear this signal, you can still escape the Matrix.